Hello guys, you're on the Stolen Audio Diaries. Subscribe and like.
I was in Seattle, of all places, standing in a sleek high-rise conference room, surrounded by sharp suits, polished shoes, and the low hum of corporate ambition. My team and I had been preparing for this meeting for weeks. A major pitch to expand our logistics operation into 3 new states. I should have been focused, locked in. And for a while Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number. I ignored it, habit really. I've gotten used to blocking out distractions when I'm in front of a room. I kept presenting, moving through the slide deck, watching heads nod in approval. Then it buzzed again. Same number. We hit Q&A, and the phone buzzed a 3rd time. I excused myself under the pretense of grabbing a document from my briefcase and stepped out into the hallway. I pulled the phone out, stared at the screen, and sighed. One more call. Against my better judgment, I picked up. Hello. There was a pause. Then the voice came through, low, bitter, and angry. Tell Madison to stop playing with me, or this is gonna end badly. I stopped in my tracks. My heart actually skipped. It wasn't the words so much as the way he said her name. Like he knew her well. Like he'd said it 1,000 times before. But this time it felt sour. What did you just say? There was silence for a moment. Then the man asked, Wait, this isn't Luke? No, I said, voice tight. The guy cursed under his breath and hung up. I stood there staring at my reflection in the glass wall of the hallway, phone still pressed to my ear. For a full minute I didn't move. The hum of fluorescent lights, the muted sounds of the boardroom behind me. All of it faded into a kind of ringing silence. Madison, my wife. We've been married 6 years. No kids yet, but it's something we'd been planning for. Talking about names, looking at neighborhoods with better schools, all the someday stuff that makes you feel grounded. We live in Portland, a modest 2-story home just far enough from downtown to avoid the chaos, but close enough to feel connected. She's been my rock, or at least, that's what I thought. At first, I tried to dismiss the call as a simple mix-up. Some angry guy looking for a Luke, whose girlfriend happens to also be named Madison. That's all it was. A wrong number. Coincidence. But that voice. His tone. It didn't sound like a guy confused or embarrassed by dialing the wrong number. It sounded like a threat. Like a warning. And it hit something in me I couldn't shake. I rejoined the meeting. Smiled. Answered questions. But the rest of that presentation might as well have been in another language. My thoughts were no longer in Seattle. They were racing back home. Madison and I had been a little off lately, but nothing dramatic. Little things, her spending more time out of the house, new workout classes, more effort into her appearance on random weekdays. But I chalked it up to her just trying something new. We'd been together long enough that comfort sometimes blurred into routine. I didn't think anything of it. Not really. But now that little crack in the wall felt like it might be hiding a tunnel. After the meeting wrapped, I went straight back to the hotel and sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, just turning that phone call over and over in my head. I even pulled up Madison's recent texts, nothing out of the ordinary. A few messages to her friend Kate, a recipe link, a reminder about a dentist appointment. All normal. Still, something gnawed at me, so I called her. She picked up right away, voice cheerful. Hey babe, how'd the meeting go? I listened carefully, trying to hear anything in her voice. She sounded normal, like the Madison I knew. That made it worse. Went well, I said. Listen, did anything weird happen today? Like, a call from someone you know. There was a pause. Slight, but noticeable. What do you mean? I got a weird call, I said, keeping it casual. Some guy called me 4 times, said something about you, then realized he had the wrong number. Thought he was talking to someone named Luke. Her laugh came quick, almost too quick. Wow, that's creepy. What did he say? I repeated it word for word. Tell Madison to stop playing with me, or this is gonna end badly. Dead silence. Then she said, That's insane. I don't even know a Luke. It sounded rehearsed. Just for a second. Like she'd flipped to a script. Probably just some lunatic, she added, and moved on to asking about dinner plans. I played along. But my stomach was in knots. I hung up feeling less certain than ever. Something was off. It wasn't just the call, it was her response. It was the way her voice shifted when I mentioned it. Like she was trying too hard to be casual. I'm not a jealous guy. I've never snooped. I've always trusted her, maybe too much. But that night, sitting alone in a hotel room halfway across the country, I felt the first real crack in the foundation of my marriage. That call didn't feel random. It felt like a door creaking open to something I wasn't supposed to see. And deep down, I already knew. This was the beginning of something bad. I just didn't know how far it would go. I got back to Portland 2 days later, but it felt like I was returning to a different life than the one I'd left. Madison picked me up from the airport. She wore a navy dress I hadn't seen before and that familiar warm smile that used to make everything feel okay. She kissed me on the cheek, asked how Seattle went, talked about how her weekend with Kate and the girls was relaxing. Her voice was smooth, easy, too easy. I smiled. I nodded. I even reached over and held her hand during the drive. But inside, I was a completely different person than the man who had left for that trip. The problem with doubt is that once it gets in, it doesn't leave quietly. It spreads. It infects everything. A conversation becomes an interrogation. A routine becomes a clue. And every laugh, every glance, every casual sentence starts to feel like a potential lie. That night, she went to bed early. Said she had a 6 a.m. Pilates class. I stayed up late, pretending to work on client invoices. But really, I just sat there replaying everything. Her texts, her voice, that call. I knew I shouldn't. I knew it crossed a line. But I waited until she was asleep, then walked quietly into the living room where she usually left her laptop charging overnight. I opened it. No password. Just like that, I was inside. I wasn't expecting anything obvious. I knew Madison. She was smart. If she was hiding something, it wouldn't be sitting in plain sight. But still, I looked not out of jealousy but logic. A need to confirm whether I was going crazy or not. Her inbox? Normal. Mostly newsletters, appointment reminders, conversations with her sister and friends. A few work-related threads. Nothing scandalous. But her calendar? That's where it started. Every Friday, like clockwork, was marked personal training 2:30 to 5 p.m. I'd never questioned it. She started it a few months back. Said she wanted to get in better shape before the holidays. I supported her. Even joked about joining her one day. She always laughed and said, "You just slow me down." But something about the timing struck me now. 2.5 hours every Friday afternoon? At a gym 20 minutes from home? That was a long session. And oddly consistent. So I tested a theory. I went to the Find My app on my phone. Madison and I had shared locations since last year. She insisted on it after I got into a fender bender on a road trip. Claimed it made her feel closer when we were apart. I never thought much of it. But when I checked her Friday locations over the last 2 weeks, she hadn't been near her gym. Not even close. Both times, she had pinged near the east side. Specifically, a few blocks from the old loft we used to rent when we first moved in together. It was a small, trendy area. Not where her gym was. Not even close. I felt the floor shift beneath me. I called her. It was around 10:30. She picked up groggily. "Hey, you okay?" she asked, voice low and raspy. Yeah, I said. Just had a weird question. Where do you go for training again? I was thinking of getting back into it. She paused for a second. Same place I told you, Iron Edge, downtown. Why? Just curious, I replied, forcing a yawn. Night. She laughed lightly. You're weird. Love you. I hung up. The next morning I checked her gym's website. They didn't list any trainers named Luke. Didn't mean much. Not everyone uses their full name on the site. But I still called. Asked about drop-in sessions. Chatted up the front desk assistant. Eventually, I worked the conversation around to Madison. Oh, I don't think she's been around much lately, the woman said casually. At least not in the last couple of weeks. She was pretty regular in July, though. I thanked her and hung up. So, Madison wasn't going to the gym. She was lying. Actively. And while that didn't prove anything, not yet, It told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't in my head. Something was going on. I wish I could say I felt angry in that moment or betrayed. But honestly, I just felt cold, detached, like I'd flipped some kind of emotional breaker. I didn't bring it up to her. Not yet. I needed more. I wasn't going to confront her without knowing the full picture. I knew that if I pushed too soon, she'd just spin it, deflect, minimize, maybe even cry, and then I'd end up being the paranoid husband who doesn't trust his wife. No, I was going to be careful, calculated. So I started watching. Quietly. Fridays became my trigger. I casually asked her how the gym went, what they worked on. She'd always have an answer: glutes, core, cardio, some imaginary new machine. Sometimes she'd even pull up fake soreness as a performance. It was good, convincing. If I hadn't known to look, I would have believed her. But now I was tuned in to every detail, every lie, and with every week the distance between us grew. Not because I pulled away, but because I started seeing the space for what it was. Empty, built on something false. I hadn't caught her yet, but in my mind I already knew. And deep down I think she knew I was beginning to see it too. I woke up that Friday with a knot in my chest that wouldn't go away. Madison was in the kitchen already, hair in a messy bun, humming while making coffee. She greeted me like any other morning. A quick kiss on the cheek, a casual "you sleeping in today?" and a mention of her usual training session that afternoon. I told her I had a last-minute work trip. 2 days in Texas. I made it sound rushed. Fake annoyed, like I was dreading the flight. She barely blinked. "Oh no," she said, stirring her coffee. "That *CKs. No questions, no concern. Not even a, 'why didn't you tell me earlier?' Just indifference." She kissed me goodbye around noon, wearing yoga leggings, a cropped hoodie, and her gym bag slung over her shoulder. She looked amazing, honestly. Too amazing. Makeup done, hair curled just slightly, like she wanted to look effortless. I waited 20 minutes after she pulled out of the driveway before I grabbed my keys and followed. The air in Portland was gray and damp, typical fall weather, and everything felt muted. My heart was pounding the whole drive, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly they ached. I knew where she was going. At least I thought I did. She didn't head toward the gym. Of course she didn't. Instead, she drove east, back to that same cluster of streets near our old loft. It was a weird feeling watching her from a few cars behind, like I wasn't part of her life anymore, just some stranger shadowing someone he used to know. Eventually, she pulled into a quiet residential neighborhood. Tree-lined, upper middle class, nothing fancy but nice. She turned into the driveway of a one-story modern house with gray paneling and big front windows. I parked down the street, behind a hedge, out of sight. I didn't even know whose house it was yet. But I knew. Madison sat in the car for a minute, checking her phone. Then the front door of the house opened. And there he was. Tall, maybe 6 feet 2 inches. Lean build, dark hair, clean-shaven. Looked a couple of years younger than me, maybe late 20s or early 30s. He smiled as he stepped out, barefoot in jeans and a white t-shirt, and walked right up to her window. She stepped out and hugged him. Not the kind of hug you give a friend. Not the kind of hug you give your trainer. The kind where bodies press close and linger just a moment too long. Then, and I swear I felt my stomach cave in on itself, she kissed him. Not a peck. Not some casual greeting. It was soft, slow, and *mate. Like they'd done it 100 times before. Like they were used to it. They walked inside together a few seconds later, the door closing behind them. I sat there in the car, completely still. Everything around me faded. I couldn't feel the cold air coming through the cracked window. I couldn't hear the traffic on the nearby street. I couldn't even think. This was it. I had spent weeks unraveling a thread, trying to figure out what was real and what was just in my head. And now, here it was, all of it in front of me, undeniable. I wasn't crazy. She was cheating on me, and I just watched it happen with my own eyes. I don't know how long I sat there. Maybe 40 minutes. Maybe an hour. I couldn't bring myself to drive away. I just stared at the house, trying to imagine what was happening behind those walls. Was it the first time? Had it started months ago? Was this the only place they met? I thought about every Friday afternoon over the past few months. Every lie. Every kiss she gave me when she came home smelling like shampoo and sweat, telling me she had crushed leg day. I thought about how stupid I must have looked, sitting at home answering emails while my wife was with someone else, laughing with him, holding him, giving him the part of her that used to belong to me. I felt sick, hollow. Eventually, I drove off. Not home, just away. I ended up at a diner across town. One of those places that smells like burnt coffee and warm syrup. I ordered pancakes I didn't touch and stared out the window as rain started to fall. I watched it beat up and slide down the glass, wondering when my marriage had started to rot. I thought I'd cry, or scream, or punch something, but I didn't. I just sat there, completely numb. And then, slowly, something else started to creep in. Not sadness, not heartbreak, resolve. Because now I knew. Now I had proof. And the worst part? I think she believed she was getting away with it. That I was too busy, too trusting, too stupid to see it. But she was wrong. She didn't know what was coming. She didn't know I'd already started making plans, quiet, strategic ones, while she was busy building a life with someone else behind my back. The pain was still fresh. But beneath it, something colder was starting to grow. Clarity. And with clarity comes control. She thought she was in charge of the story. She had no idea the next chapter belonged to me. The morning after I saw Madison with him, I woke up before sunrise and just stared at the ceiling for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just laid there, feeling this cold, calculated silence settle over me. It was like some part of me had shut off the emotional valve. Maybe it was survival. Maybe it was just shock. But whatever it was, it made things eerily clear. I knew what I had to do. For weeks, I'd been chasing suspicions, trying to piece together signs and whispers. But now I had certainty. I had seen it. I had watched my wife kiss another man like I wasn't even real. And suddenly, the thought of confronting her didn't feel necessary. I didn't want an apology. I didn't want some sob story about needing space or not feeling seen. I didn't want her tears or explanations. I wanted to protect myself. I'd built something over the last few years. A logistics company I started from my garage. It wasn't glamorous, and it sure as hell wasn't easy, but I'd worked every day to grow it. We moved from regional to national contracts. Last year, we broke the $10 million mark in annual revenue. The kicker? Madison didn't know. We always lived modestly, drove regular cars, took decent vacations but never flashy ones. I kept the books separate, paid myself a salary that matched my old job. It was easier that way, cleaner. She had no reason to look deeper. And thank God for that. Because if she'd known just how much I was worth now, how much she could take in a divorce if I wasn't careful, things might have played out very differently. That morning, before she even rolled over in bed, I made the call. My attorney, Daniel, answered on the first ring. We'd worked together during my company's acquisition of a smaller outfit in Colorado. I trusted him. More importantly, he wasn't the kind of guy who blinked when things got personal. I need to update my will, I said flatly. He paused. Everything okay? No, but it will be. We met that afternoon in his office. No small talk. No wasted time. I told him I suspected infidelity. That I had reason to believe Madison was preparing to leave me, and that if she did, I wanted her walking away with nothing but a suitcase. He nodded, asked a few pointed questions, then got to work. We rewrote everything. If something happened to me, my assets went to my brother and a charitable foundation I'd been quietly supporting for years. We moved the company's holdings into a trust, airtight, irrevocable. Madison's name came off everything. Bank accounts, contingency shares, even the emergency contact list at the office. The best part? She wouldn't even notice. Because while I was locking down our future, she was out training on a Friday afternoon again. That's what she told me. Anyway, what she didn't know is that I had followed her earlier that morning. Not physically, I didn't need to. I had installed a tracking app on her phone the week before. She gave me her passcode years ago, never changed it. That day, she went somewhere new. Not the same house as before. This time it was a boutique hotel out near the river, the kind of place business travelers stay when they want to pretend they're on vacation. I didn't need pictures this time. I already had what I needed. So instead of chasing her, I spent the evening doing something far more productive. Taking her off my insurance, setting up a private financial account, and drafting a list of every shared asset we had. Things she wouldn't think to hide or touch until it was too late. And still, she was clueless. That weekend, she left again. Told me Kate had invited her to a girls' cabin getaway. I smiled, kissed her goodbye, even helped her pack. 2 hours later, I saw her location ping from a rental house in Bend. A sleek Airbnb tucked in a secluded neighborhood near the mountains. Same guy as before. I confirmed it the next morning. She didn't even try to lie this time. Texted me once to say the hot tub was amazing, and the views were unreal. I texted back, "Glad you're getting some peace." She sent a heart emoji. I stared at it for a long time, and it struck me just how far we'd fallen. At some point, without even realizing it, I'd stopped being her husband. I'd become a placeholder, a prop in the background of a life she'd outgrown but didn't want to let go of until she had something better lined up. Well, she'd made her move. Now it was my turn. The next morning, I finalized the asset protection forms. Everything was filed and notarized. My company, locked behind a corporate firewall she couldn't touch. The house, still technically in both our names for now. But I had a plan for that too. And still, she had no idea. When she got back from her girls' weekend, she was glowing. Literally glowing. I don't know if it was guilt or adrenaline or just the high of getting away with it, but she breezed through the door like nothing had changed. "How was the trip?" I asked. She kissed me on the cheek. "So good. I needed that." "I'm glad," I said. And I meant it, just not the way she thought. Because while she was playing house with another man, I was dismantling the one we had, brick by brick, document by document. Quietly, ruthlessly, and she wouldn't know until it was too late. I wasn't sleeping much anymore. Not because I was haunted or heartbroken. I think that part of me had already shut down. But because my mind was always moving, always planning. For the first time since that call in Seattle, I felt like I had the upper hand. I knew what she was doing, where she was going, who she was with. She didn't know what I was doing. And that made all the difference. After she got back from her little mountain getaway, the one she said was with Kate but actually involved matching toothbrushes and shared wine glasses. I decided it was time to learn more about the man she was risking everything for. His name was Trevor. I got that from a forwarded reservation confirmation email she accidentally left open on her laptop. The Airbnb booking in Bend. It was addressed to him, not her. She had emailed it to herself for convenience, I guess. Sloppy. Overconfident. That tends to happen when you think no one's paying attention. Once I had the name, the rest came easy. Public records. Social media. A quick LinkedIn search. Turns out Trevor had once been a mid-sized client of mine, back when I was still personally managing accounts. He ran a small warehousing firm out of Vancouver. The irony? We dropped his contract a year and a half ago due to performance concerns. That was the polite language. Truthfully, he'd missed 3 deadlines, screwed up inventory tracking, and tried to blame my team for it. I cut ties. Apparently, he found another way to insert himself into my business by going through my wife. At first, I thought the connection was a coincidence. But the deeper I dug, the more it started to look deliberate. Madison and I had hosted a mixer at our old office a couple years back. Clients, vendors, partners, Trevor had been there, and she had talked to him. I remember it now. She'd mentioned how he seemed charming but a little slick. Slick indeed. I waited a week before making contact. I needed the right moment and the right tone. This wasn't going to be a confrontation. I wasn't going to scream or throw punches. That's not me. Not anymore. I wanted him to feel small, powerless. I wanted him to know that the game he thought he was playing had already ended, and he lost. I showed up outside the apartment he kept just across the Columbia River, a trendy spot near a park. He used it as a business crash pad. That's what his Instagram caption had said 6 months ago. I waited until Madison wasn't there. I didn't want her in the picture. This wasn't about her anymore. He came home around 7:30 p.m., carrying a takeout bag and wearing joggers and a hoodie, the uniform of a man who thinks he's already won. "Trevor," I said from the sidewalk, just as he stepped out of his car. He stopped, confused, then cautious. He recognized me. I could see it in his face. "Mark, right?" I nodded. He straightened up a little, maybe trying to read the situation. Hey, long time. How's business?" "Better than yours, I'm sure." He flinched slightly. I smiled. "Mind if we talk?" I asked. He didn't answer right away, just stood there, fidgeting with the keys in his hand. Eventually, he motioned toward the entrance. "We can talk inside." "No," I cut in. "We'll talk here." I took a step closer. Calm. Even. My voice never rose. "I know everything," I said. "The trips. The house. The lies. I know where you've been. I know when. I know what she told you. And I know what you think this is." He didn't say a word. Just blinked. "She didn't tell you who I really am, did she?" I asked. Still nothing. I leaned in slightly, just enough to let him feel the weight of it. "You think you're in control? You're not. You're a temporary thrill. A footnote. She doesn't even know you lost your last 3 clients and your company's running on fumes." His expression changed. Just a flicker. But I saw it. "You try to come near her again, you so much as text her. I will destroy you. Not with fists. With paperwork. With phone calls. With NDA violations and contract blacklists. You'll be radioactive. No vendor. No clients. No funding. You'll be a cautionary tale for junior partners." I let that sit. He tried to speak. Maybe to defend himself, maybe to lie, but I shook my head. "No speeches. Just vanish. You've got 48 hours. He didn't nod. He didn't argue. He just stood there, frozen, holding a bag of pad thai and whatever delusion he had about the future. I turned and walked back to my car. That night, Madison came home with Thai takeout. A different place, a different order. She smiled, asked if I wanted to split the spring rolls. I said sure. She told me Kate had just broken up with her boyfriend, which was why their weekend getaway got extended. I nodded, said I hoped Kate was okay. She didn't suspect a thing, but I watched her carefully that night. Watched the way she moved, the little lies in her tone, the practiced pauses in her sentences. She was already planning her next move, testing how much space she could take, how much distance I'd let grow between us. But Trevor was gone. 2 days later, she got quiet, cautious, like something had shifted behind the scenes. She never said it, but I saw it in her eyes. She felt her grip slipping, and that's exactly what I wanted. The day after Trevor vanished, Madison suggested we take a break. "You've been so obsessed with work," she said, like she hadn't just been living a second life. I agreed. Let her believe she had the upper hand. We started discussing space, weekends apart, all on her terms, or so she thought. That night, I told her the truth. Our finances were protected, my will had been changed, and if we split, she'd walk away with nothing. For the first time in months, she looked scared. The control she thought she had? Gone. The silence in the house was no longer awkward. It was power shifting. Quiet. Sharp.
Bye bye guys, thank you for watching.